The thought that I'm going to leave this place and leave all my friends behind and leave this community that we've fostered and created here at the bar is devastating. It's going to be probably one of the hardest days of my life. I was a sales manager for about 15 years. I enjoyed it, I mean, and I was pretty good at it, I think, but it just didn't really offer the kind of excitement that I was looking for, or kind of drama, I guess, that I was looking for. You do the same sort of things all the time. Everything's pretty straightforward. And I thought, you know, I really want to go someplace where there's a little bit of chaos. Since I was a kid, I've always sort of had it in my head that I wanted to own a bar. This hotel has been here since 1922. I've been here for 15 years. These things are just going to literally disappear, largely due to the fact of the legislation and the restrictions and the obstacles that are put in our way to maintain the business.
In rural communities, you have churches and schools, a place to buy groceries, the post office, and the Beverage Room Hotel. And that was a place where people could meet and share their stories and see how things were going. It was a place of attachment for people.
Back in the old days, politicians, lawyers, judges, they all used to come to the pubs. And after work, that's where everybody went. Everyone in the community would go to the pubs to have a couple beer after a hard day's work. The history of the hotel with my family is my grandfather, Ben Zelkovich, bought the hotel from Carling Brewery in 1959. And at that time, the breweries were told to get out of the hotel industry. Carling's owned the Pembina Hotel, which my grandfather purchased the hotel from, and the Cambridge Hotel right across the street was owned by Labatt Brewery, which the Klein family purchased the hotel from.
It was an entrepreneurial movement all across the prairies. And sometimes it was the people that, you know, people prospect gold in the north. People prospected certain businesses, and hotels were one, particularly when the railway came. So the hotel landscape really was one of the first landscapes. Once the decision was made to put the railway there, when they were building the railway, and when the railway was there and trains came through. So for all three of those time points, people needed a place to stay, eat, and drink. There was a big shift from railway traffic, bringing people through town, and stopping to the automobile. And then as tourism built throughout the 70s into the 80s, it was up on the Trans-Canada, so the hotel scene shifted up to the highway where it is today.
If and when the business sells, I will be very happy to be out of this business. I will be very happy to have weekends for my family and to not have to come in crazy nights and not have to deal with drunks that are out of control that think that they should be allowed to smash glasses and spit and do all that kind of stuff and start fights and everything else. I'm looking forward to that day. I am American from California. A friend of mine met a girl in Oregon. That girl was from small town Manitoba, and they fell in love, decided to get married, and they invited me to the wedding. I came for the wedding. I'd never been to Canada before, and came to the small town where she's from, went to the bar, and the wedding was just down the street. Had a great time, met a girl. Now I own that bar that I came into, and I live on that same street that I was partying at. So how I ended up here was the girl. I've always wanted to be sort of the captain of my own ship. And the business was for sale, and I enjoy socializing, I enjoy music, I enjoy events, I enjoy all of that stuff, so I thought I could make a good go of it. When I started to reflect on all of the work and all the different things I've tried to do to change the business, I sort of began to believe that maybe this isn't all my fault. At that point, I went and called my local government bureau rep and asked for some help. I was referred to his manager, then to his manager, then to, just sort of people I've never met before up in the higher echelons of the Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries Corporation, and then on to the government. Essentially, I was getting the runaround. Nobody knew how to solve the problem or who to put me in contact with. I Eventually ended up at the Manitoba Legislature building with a guy named Paul LeBoon, that's the special advisor for liquor and gaming. And I was told there, and actually at a subsequent meeting with the head of liquor, the head of the liquor division in Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries, that this is my problem. It's something that only I am experiencing as the Notre Dame Hotel, and it's going on nowhere else, so they can't do anything to help me. I didn't believe that.
The Liquor and Gaming Authority is actually a relatively new organization. It was formed in April of 2014, and the Liquor and Gaming Authority took the previous Manitoba Gaming Control Commission and the previous Manitoba Liquor Commission and joined them together to form one central regulatory agency. There are requirements for hotels to have beverage rooms, and it does depend on the population of the municipality. So that is a big factor. And it also depends on the number of rooms in a hotel as well. So there are certain requirements that hotels must maintain in order to have a beverage room.
Well, beverage rooms in Manitoba, are they still doing as well as they've always done? I mean, that's a complicated question. I think that some are doing great, some aren't doing very well. We've seen closures. But I think overall, that's still a viable business. But I think that the historic urbanization in our province since World War II has had an impact, particularly on rural hotel beverage rooms and rural hotel beer vendors. I think that business has become much more competitive now. People are willing to travel larger distance to consume products or go pick up what they want to buy. So you're seeing rural people drive into the city much more frequently than they used to. I think that's created challenges rurally. But I do think it's still an opportunity for a thriving business. And you see that rural hotel and the beverage room being very much sometimes a focus for the community, a gathering place. And I think that's a very important aspect of that business.
The Sandy Lake Hotel is actually the hub of the community for sure. It's just so known for, it's kind of like the rural Cheers. This beverage room was built in 1962, and the rooms above it were built that year. I know that the restaurant part is the older part. We were looking for a small business at the time, and my husband had a friend that had the former owner was a friend of his, and he had suggested that we buy this particular hotel. I did have good years. I did pay a lot of my mortgage off. I fixed the place up, I got it up to code, I did a lot of things that, I was a rock star for quite a few years, and it was good. Now, living in the hotel, in the suite, I had to let go of my chef. I just couldn't afford to pay him. I have cashed in RSPs all in the last 2 years. The last increase, 3 years ago with the beer, that's pretty well the decline of beverage rooms. Life is just not getting any easier, and to own a hotel, I think, is one of the most taxing businesses there are.
Brandon right now is growing quite fast, so it's a bit of an oddity. There's the old hotels, there's still 4 or 5 of them that still exist in the core, and they have a clientele, and they seem to just float and get by. On the edge of the city, it's the Brown Social House and, those whole movements, and you wait half an hour to get a table. And that's because Brandon's growing right now. But in the rural scene, it's completely different. I mean, they face depopulation, so they have fewer people. They have changing social norms. So first it was, more responsible driving. And then the smoking ban in 1999, a little more questionable, but you can see how some people might stay away. And just being old hotels that are hard to maintain, they're not the place that you want to stay on your way through town. So I think they've really been hit pretty hard in many of the rural areas, particularly the ones that are staying the same or declining in population.
Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries has a relationship with our partners in the private wine stores and the rural liquor vendors and the hotel beer vendors, where different margins are exchanged and different discounts are given for the sale of products. That's been in place for a long time and hasn't changed. In October last month, we brought together all these partners for a meeting, and out of that, we identified some interest in creating a working group to challenge us and to challenge each other on what's working and what's not working. So I think that stuff's on the table. I think we need to talk about about it. Is there an opportunity for significant change there? I don't know.
The things that they've done to us and for us is clearly working to benefit the Liquor Commission. Because every time they convince a customer that it's no longer valid or no longer a good time to come and drink in the bar, they benefit. Because the $20 that they were going to spend becomes an entire bottle of liquor now instead of 5 drinks in my bar, carefully controlled and consumed and supervised by an adult sober person. Now they've got a bottle of whiskey or they've got a bottle of whatever at home, they can drink it at their leisure.
I like to come here because of the food and the staff. I could stay at home and drink for a lot less, but I come out here because I love the people here. I love the staff and everybody here and the environment.
My husband and I bought the Sprague Hotel in 2012. The banks would not lend us any money to purchase it, so we went to through a vendor buyback mortgage with the former owner. A vendor buyback mortgage is very common. Rural hotels have been known to have been sold and lost 7-8 times. When they can't make a go of it, it goes back to the vendor. The purchaser gets nothing in return, although they may have put thousands of dollars worth of repairs into it. It goes back to the original owner. And like I said, many hotels have been sold and lost many times. The hotel has been in the community since the community started. It was originally built in 1928, and the beverage room was put on in the 1960s. It was a logging community, and it was the hub of the entire town. Everybody went to the hotel.
I feel like this establishment is obviously a local watering hole. We're a small town, and if anything were to happen to it and it were to shut down, I mean, a lot of the people in this town would most likely stay home more and drink than really go out because of the way where we are located. It's just further to get to somewhere else to go drinking and have another watering hole, so this is perfect for everybody around here.
The struggles we face are the low margins that we receive for our vendor, for selling the vendor. We have drinking and driving laws, which of course we need. The non-smoking. The median income in my area is $17,000 a year, so there's not a lot of disposable income. I rely on tourism. I cried every day for a year after we bought this place because I thought, what have we done?
I enjoy coming here because I like to meet people, the food is good, and it gives me a chance to go out. It's a safe environment.
Many Korean doing business grocery store. So Hank wants different kind of business. So we found out this nice place. Just we get the business this kind. 첫째는 오픈 시간이 이제 9시부터 10시까지고 때로는 11시까지고 그다음에 위켄드에는 2시, 3시까지 오픈을 하고 있어야 돼서 그게 좀 힘든데 바텐더를 쓰고 싶어도 이익이 그만큼 나질 않아서 모든 일을 우리가 다 하다 보니까 일하는 것이 너무 많아서 좀 힘이 들 때가 참 많다.
What would happen if it shut down? Pretty much everybody would have to drink and drive because they'd have to go to town. And this is the only thing in the area that you can actually sit down, have a beer, and have a good meal.
I've been coming to the Bruns Boot, I don't know, probably over 30 years. I enjoy coming here because there's lots of great people around here. I grew up here all my life. I just lived down the road. Great food here. I enjoy coming here because of the atmosphere. It's fun, it's safe. That pretty much sums it up.
I was 25 when I bought this place, and everybody was kind of excited for me to come back, buy the rural bar, and everything just kind of lined up, made sense for me to do it. I've always been in this industry. I ran a couple nightclubs in Winnipeg, and this hotel came up for sale. I went to high school in Selkirk. So all the pieces kind of just came together. It made sense. The history of this hotel, it was the second last all-men's club in Manitoba. It's been in business for about 90 years. It's a local watering hole for many people. At one time and one night, I've had a grandparent, a father, and the son all in the same room at the same time.
Back in the day when I was like 18, 20, 22 years old, I would come to this place. There was no big bar like this over here. There was big round tables, no VLTs. You would come in here if you wanted to know something about your car or whatever it was. You would come in here and you couldn't do the Google thing. You would just come in here and ask an old timer, because I was a young guy back then and there was like 50-year-old guys, 60-year-old guys, just like I am now. And I would sit here and ask, and then I would be able to go home and bang, there it is. I was able to fix whatever I was doing, and you would just come here and ask. This establishment here means a lot to this community, especially because if it ever did shut down, there'd be no work, no good food. You'd have to travel a lot farther for your beer. The highway that runs through here would be just another road.
I've never been the one that would ask the province to help. I've always just trying to do better myself, look to see how I can fix something or how I can be busier. It seems like a waste of time for me to be worrying about what they can do to help me. At that time, it almost seems like you're already in trouble. You know, what have you been doing? What haven't you been correcting? You know, government takes so long to answer anything, and you're waiting for them to help you. It's too late. It's the only bank machine, the only cup of coffee, the only VLTs, the only beer vendor on this side of the river. So without this place, everybody on this side of the river, East Selkirk, up 59 Highway North, towards Scanterbury, Lebo, and even down towards Lockport. This is the place where they would come grab a case of beer, have a steak, play some VLTs.
We purchased this in November 30th of last year, and I was working on Myrna for about 2 years to try and convince her that it was a good idea to get involved. The previous owners had it for sale for a few years. We do have a different business, and the economy in that business was slowing down, and we need to fall back on something else. And I'm from Winnipegosis. I grew up ranching outside of town, and there's kind of like a dream for a long time that always thought one day, you know, own a bar. The building was originally built as a lumberyard in the early 80s, and then when the original hotel burnt down, then this building was purchased and developed into a hotel and a restaurant and bar.
It was a timing issue. It seemed like it was the right thing to do.
Business is a center staple for the community. It's a small rural town. They come in to relax and have a drink and to get vendor, and we've put in a laundry service. So there's different avenues of the business that people will come to town, they can stop and feel comfortable and welcome. I think it's a very important part of the community.
We had zero experience in the hospitality industry, so it was a big eye-opener for us when we took over. All of the restraints, I guess is a good word to put, and all of the, I guess, the different charges and whatnot, that we had no idea what was coming our way.
I don't know why it is such a hard concept to get across to some of these guys in the government that eventually you are going to take so much that this business is going to fail. And maybe it is going to fail, but the frustrating part is it's not by necessity. It's not by sort of natural selection that it's failing, or that it's even, you know, that it's struggling as hard as it is. It's just because we pay so much. Right now, I think we paid about $500 million to the government every year. I don't know of any other industry that does that. For that reason, I did the display at the legislature. It was essentially to say, like, you want to be masters, you want to be kings of this industry, you want to dominate this industry, well, then I'm going to build you a throne and there, just to show people that what you're doing, to show them what you're doing, to show them what you're doing is wrong.
We feel that what Angelo is doing is awesome because he's bringing the attention to the government that the rural hotel owners need help and he's really generating the attention for that, which is awesome. And it takes groups to make things happen. Nobody here listens to a single voice.
Yeah.
One of our key responsibilities as Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries is the net profit that we raise each year goes to the government to support healthcare, to support social services, to support infrastructure, education. It's very important that we provide as many dollars as we possibly can to support the great social programs we have in Manitoba. But at the same time, we won't be able to support those social programs very well if the business partners we have are going out of business. So we have to find ways that we can address these challenges and work together to rise the tide for everyone. So we're all doing well from a business perspective, but also the people of Manitoba are doing well because we're providing that support for those social programs.
I think that there are certainly things that they can do for the rural hotels, like help us with our advertising. They spent $6 million last year advertising the liquor marts, and we saw none of it. I hand-painted my sign out front of my hotel because I couldn't afford to have one made. I've done all my advertising. It has cost me. And the Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries, it doesn't cost them a cent, but I'm selling their product. They like to refer to us as their partners. They're terrible partners.
We're not partners. We're food. We're the bottom of the food chain for these guys. They sell us beer, they make a pile of money. We go to business, they don't care because people are just gonna get in their car and drive a little farther, go somewhere else and buy the beer in another city or another town and somebody else makes the money because the bar in this town is gone.
The beverage rooms in the city are different from the rural hotels because they have to keep up. There is other options. And that's kind of what it seems like a lot of the rural hotel owners have failed at. They're believing that it's their right for them to be busy. They believe that people should drink in there, but they're not keeping up with what is going on. When you're running a place in the city, you know, like you have to stay on it. You have to have the nicer staff. You have to have, you know, the better TVs. You have to have faster service. You have to keep constantly thinking of these things because you have competitors everywhere. And if rural hotels are worried about them not being busy, they're not even competing against somebody because they're the only rural hotel there. They're losing against a guy's garage or they're losing against someone's basement.
We in the rural areas, you have to have the population base. If you don't have the population base, then you're gonna have to make more per beer that you sell. Or you're gonna have to do things that bring in more money. You will have to work harder to make that same dollar that you would have a little bit easier time in the city.
It boils down to a numbers game, and with the the amount of people and the area coming through here, it's not what would be coming through Dauphin and or Winnipeg.
We're striving to increase our numbers and the traffic flow so that we can survive. That's the only way we're going to make this business succeed is if we have more traffic flow. And in the rural areas, that's the toughest thing, is the traffic flow and the numbers stopping to support us.
On any given year, on average, about 3/4 of the tourism traffic in Manitoba is what they call rubber tire traffic. So that's people driving in and across. And similarly, about 3/4 of the tourists are from within Manitoba. So it's people traveling within Manitoba, which of course is almost all rubber tire traffic. And so how that has impacted rural hotels, it's anyone's guess, but I suspect we've all seen the highways in the summertime and you can see all the motorhomes and campers and that kind of thing where people just put their house on the back of their pickup truck and go. And they don't need that rural hotel. They might hit the off sales, but they're not staying and eating, and they're going to the co-op, the off sales, and then to an RV park.
Part of the fun of having the liquor license was you could try anything, and if it didn't work, it didn't work. But some of the fun promotions we used to do with the help of our brewers, some of the big brewers, was we did a trip, we gave away a trip to the Jerry Springer show in Chicago, airfare, hotel, and a limo to see the show. We also did a trip to Soldier Field for a Bears-Giants game. So we tried and tried, and anything you could do to bring business, you would try.
We have karaoke coming to the bar, and that's a great event. It packs the place for 2 days. I've had hypnotists, dinner show. where we would sell tickets ahead of time and then have a nice dinner. And I had a guy from Ontario. He came and we had a dinner show, him and his band, and generally once a month live entertainment. And I still continue to do that.
전에는 우리가 한 달에 한 번씩 스페셜로 해서 가라오케 나이트도 하고 DJ 나이트도 하고 스트리퍼 나이트도 했었는데 그렇게 하다 보니까 너무 일을 많이 하고 돈도 많이 스펜되고 거기에 비해서는 이제 너무 이익이 적어서 먼스리는 지금은 안 하고 3개월에 한 번씩 우리가 스페셜을 하고 있었는데 앞으로도 우리가 계속 할 예정이다. 왜냐면 그들이 어라운드 커스터머들이 그런 걸 또 원하고 있고 그래서 우리가 앞으로도 3개월에 한 번 정도는 스페셜을 하려고 한다.
Some of the things you got to overcome, the driving is a big one. So I owned a bus. I've actually worn out 2 buses. I've gone on my 3rd bus now. And what I do is I go pick people up in Winnipeg or Carmen or wherever it is they want to come from. I pick them up and I bring them here. And I'll do it on the drop of a hat. If somebody calls me on a Monday and wants something done on a Friday, I'll stand on my head to put it together. To me, that's the business. People come here from other towns or on their way to the city or local people, whoever. They'll come to us and it's like, I want to make my mark on this place. I say, well, I'll sell you a ceiling tile for $20. You can take it down. You can write whatever you want on it. The one right above our head here, a young fellow who used to come to this bar all the time, who was an institution here, wonderful, wonderful young man, was killed in a car accident in Saskatchewan. His friends came. Sorry. I don't know if I get through this. Sorry, give me a sec.
Is this one right here?
Yeah. After his funeral, all of his friends came here, and I pulled down one of the ceiling tiles and they all signed it. And that has become literally like an icon where people come just to see that tile because it reminds them of Nick.
Well, we talk about that connection in Canada between food and liquor, and we talk about how we've set up a beverage room system that's always been attached to rural hotels. We kind of need to remember the history, particularly of the Prairie provinces, but of Canada in general. And that is folks traveling across the country, either by train or by vehicle on gravel roads, stopping in small communities and needing a place to stay, also needing a place to eat and perhaps have a beer on a hot day or have a glass of wine on a cool winter evening. So much like Europe, Canada has a tradition of food service and hotels being attached to our beverage rooms. I think we're at a place where we really need to look at that, and is it time for a change?
The hotel rooms are definitely more of a burden than a revenue stream for me. By law, I'm grandfathered, so any hotel outside the perimeter of the city has to have 4 hotel rooms. By law, it has to have a bed, a dresser, and an alarm clock. I do have to heat the square foot. I can't fill the room full of dry storage. I can't use it for anything else other than the hotel would be ready for rent.
The room rentals aren't an integral part of the business. We appreciate everybody that does come and stop. The rooms are outdated, and we are moving forward to update them and make sure that our rates are very competitive and that it's a no-brainer that people are going to stop at the Moss River Inn to stay with us.
Some of the changes to the regulations have really actually positively impacted hotels in both urban and rural Manitoba. We introduced a family-friendly option that beverage rooms could apply for. It's a certain type of license. And really what that means is before 9 o'clock, beverage rooms can actually operate as a family dining room. So minors can come in. These are really great options, especially in rural communities communities where there's not a lot of resources or venues to have social gatherings. It's a really great place for community events and family gatherings.
The vendor part, where I'm selling a case of beer and people are leaving, is 60% of my sales. So out of 60% of my sales, I make between 15 and 17%. So I averaged it out at 60, we'll say 16%. So out of that 16% is my profit. By the time you pay your 2 staff and your hydro and your insurance and everything, I figure I take from over $500,000 of vendor, I end up making 2%, which is under $10,000.
More people are drinking at home, wherein the fact that we need a higher margin for our vendor sales because they're not sitting in the bar and they're not drinking in the bar. They're not spending the money like they used to. And we need a higher cut of the vendor sales. In my business, I am only allowed to sell beer through the vendor. I have 4 places around me that can sell liquor and wine, and none of them are hotels. It seems like we're almost punished for running the hotel because we are given such restrictions on what we can and cannot sell.
The VLTs, well, I receive that 22%, and then for doing well, I get reduced to 20%. It's kind of, it's hard to swallow, but I think the biggest thing that is the hardest to swallow is that the Legions get 25%, which they're struggling, but we're struggling also, and I think it's time for a change. And the Aboriginals make 90%, and it's just, and when they tell you the only reason the government wants the 10% is just so they can keep track of, it's as much as saying they can have it all. And if I had that kind of income, wow, this place would be even, booming, in comparison.
VLT가 우리한테 많은 도움을 주고 있다고 생각한다. 지금 22%를 주고 있기 때문에 좋기는 한데 거기 그 일하는 것에 비해서는 그게 그렇게 많다고 생각은 안 한다. 왜냐면 9시부터 위켄드에는 2시까지 이거를 지키고 돈을 계속 내주고 해야 되는데 비해서는 돌아오는 게 좀 많지 않다고 생각한다.
We used to have 9 staff here, and some of them were full-time. We had a bartender covering every shift, day and night. And over the years, as things, margins get squeezed, other things, other things have happened to affect our business. We've had to cut back and back and back and back. So in a town of 80 people, where I used to employ 9 people, which is significant, that would probably have the same economic effect as a huge company like Boeing in a city like Winnipeg. But yet, all of the regulation from the government, the Liquor Control Act, is all about bars and licensees, and you got to regulate this, you got to regulate that. But yet, please come down to one of our government liquor stores, buy yourself a cart full of whiskey, and away you go. Nobody's going to see where you drink it. Nobody's going to be looking after you. Nobody's going to care.
You can stay at home and you won't have to worry about drinking and driving, but I think your consumption is probably higher because you don't have a staff that are taking care of you or monitoring how much you're drinking.
Safest place in the world to drink, as far as I'm concerned, is in a bar, because you got sober people looking after you. Just take a look at the newspapers. How many people get murdered in bars? How many people get murdered at house parties? Clearly, house parties are not regulated, not controlled. People are very afraid to consume any alcohol at all now. They've pushed the limit down to 0.05 where you can get in trouble. Well, that's almost nothing. I mean, for a small person, that could be 2 drinks or less even. And so a lot of people who are responsible and would not overconsume won't even come here for 1 beer because they're afraid.
We as owners got into an industry believing that we had the ability to change something when in fact the card was stacked against us. And now you can't get out of that business. If the government wants to control the industry, well, that's fine. And I'm okay with that. But they have done it in such a way to where people's lives have suffered. If owners such as myself, have put their life savings into the business. Everything that you've ever worked for in your life, you put back into a business, not knowing that the people that regulate that business are entirely interested in you shutting down. You can't, what can you do with that?
I'm blessed to have met Angelo, to get us together, to start us talking, and to get something done, because I'm not going down without a fight.
We actually listed the place just a few months ago. As far as I'm concerned, I would never want to sell this place. I would keep it forever if I could. But just the way it's designed, it's so difficult to make money. You literally have to live behind the bar like 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day if you really want to do this job right.
I absolutely would love to sell this place, but I absolutely do not want this person or couple to fail. That's the fight. I'm fighting for them.
Certainly, if you're thinking of purchasing a beverage room hotel, what I would suggest is make sure the numbers are there. Make sure there's very strong vendor numbers. Make sure very strong VLT numbers. Make sure the revenues are there. Maybe talk to some of the reps before you decide to buy it, to get some number information from them to see if it's a viable business before you jump into it.
We need to look at how we can keep businesses viable without only applying rules that may have been set 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and in some cases, 100 years ago. So we need to really challenge ourselves to say, it's the 21st century, should we be doing some things differently?
It's been interesting, educational, frustrating, but overall, and even despite a lot of the efforts that we've been talking about, or I guess we'll be talking about, I'm still grateful for what I've been given.